Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 60 of the Anime Banter podcast with your hosts, Turtle, Mike, and me, Sean. Thank you for joining us today. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. I think it's allergy season here, though, for me, so I might sound miserable because hooray, pollen! Hooray!
There's a lot of it.
Can't breathe, can't see. Super fun times.
I mean, just earlier today, I went out to my car and it's just covered in pollen. So there's a lot of it out there. I feel for those who have the allergies. As far as I know, knock on counter, knock on wood, knock on the table that I'm sitting at. I don't have any allergies. So for all who do, I do feel for you.
I do somewhat, and more so than my allergies bother me. Like you mentioned, I'm mad about the car. Every time I go out there, my windshield is just yellow.
Yeah. The joys of spring.
My car used to be blue. Now it's just pollen colored.
Well, allergies are a bummer, but you guys have had quite an eventful week in between our recordings here. Uh, it's a good time to be a music fan.
Absolutely.
It sure is.
I know, Mike. You're gonna double up on me, but I want to start since mine happened first, and then I'll let you have at it. Is that cool?
Unacceptable!
What? So in between our previous recording and this one, I made my way out to Cleveland, Ohio, and I got to see the one and only German legends, Blind Guardian. For those who don't know, they're a metal band. They've been around since like the early to mid 80s, and they're still just as awesome as when they first came onto the scene. So I've been a fan of them for a long time, and I was very excited to see them. I did see them once before, a long time ago at this point. It was in Pittsburgh, actually. I forget where they were supposed to play, but they were moved like 2 days before the show to the Altar Bar, which is no longer a thing. It used to be a church, was made into a concert venue, and then made back into a church, I think. So the Altar Bar does not exist anymore as it did. But I got to see them again, and they were wonderful. Very great to see them. Our buddy Greg went with me. I met him out there, and it was an absolutely great show. Opening act is called Night Demon. Never heard of them before. They played 10 songs. Very good, very like traditional, straightforward metal. They had so much energy. They were having a blast. I was having a good time too, just listening along. Uh, really got a kick. Their second to last song they played was called "The Chalice," and about halfway through the song, all of these people dressed in like masks and like black robes came onto the stage holding quote unquote chalices. I think one person had a chalice and everybody else had like an empty mug, a bottle of washer fluid, a carton of milk. So everybody had different stuff. It was very funny. But Blind Guardian sent them onto the stage. The band had no idea they were coming out, and it was hysterical. Like the guitar player bumped into one of them, and he whipped around while he's playing. He was like, "What's going on? What are all these people doing?" So it was very funny. They had a blast. I had fun. Great time. And then Blind Guardian came on, and they played 11 songs and then came back for the encore to play 4 more. So we got 15 songs. It was fantastic.
A 4-song encore is pretty much unheard of.
Oh, it's nuts. And like, most of the audience were singing along, and, they played, they opened with Imaginations from the Other Side, which is one of my favorite albums by them. So great song. They played 3 songs off their newest one, and they played a ton of classics, Nightfall, a couple acoustic numbers, Skulls and Shadows, and the Bard song. Obviously, pretty much the entire crowd sang that one. He didn't have to do anything there. Majesty, Old School, and then like encore, we got Sacred Worlds, Time Stands Still, At the Iron Hill. We got Valhalla, of course, and Mirror Mirror, another one of my favorite songs. So it was fantastic. Great show.
Sounds like a fantastic show.
And Greg and I were pretty much, about as upfront as you can get to the stage. So it was pretty righteous.
You saw some bitchin' tunes. I saw some bitchin' tunes. Or heard some bitchin' tunes, I guess you should say. Some bitchin' bands.
Tell me about it.
Our buddy Greg and I, we saw Ad Infinitum and Hammerfall, and they opened for Camelot, which this was at least the third, fourth, fifth time the two of us have seen Camelot. It's added up quickly, and we've seen them in both opening roles and headlining roles, so that was cool. They were fantastic as always. They always have such a great stage presence. Ad infinitum, this was the first time I heard of them, but they were fantastic. Melissa Bonney is the lead singer, and first song she sang, and it's like, oh, this is like very like just like great vocals and everything. Second song, she opens up and she starts screaming, and I'm like, oh, it's like, were you possessed? Like, what the hell? Like, where did this come from? Without knowing anything about them, I was shocked at the swap of lyrical styles, like her vocal range. But they were fantastic. They're a Swiss German metal band, and Melissa Bonney also has the Dark Side of the Moon band, where they put out a album last year called Metamorphosis, and there's a Harry Potter song on there. There's the Hanging Tree from um the Hunger Games series, Jenny of Oldstone. It's a really cool album. And then she actually sang some songs on with Camelot when Camelot was playing, because she actually did one of the songs off of The Awakening, New Babylon. And then Hammerfall was also fantastic. The guitarist had his guitar looked like a hammer. It was fantastic. They were hilarious. They were rocking. Like, just everything about them was fantastic. Ad Infinitum played 7 songs. Hammerfall played 11. And Camelot played 14. So, fantastic show. And we actually got tickets through the Live Nation $25 sale. So, it was an absolute fantastic offer and value. And then the next night, we did it again, and we saw Heathen, who they're a thrash metal. They've been around since '84, and they have 4 albums to their name.
Wow, only 4?
Yeah, they had a hiatus between like the mid '90s to like about 2008, 2009, I believe. But they're from San Francisco, where the thrash metal scene really took off, and they were super cool. Of course, we were front row, and lead singer reached down, gave us some fist pumps during their set list, and then I finally saw them for the first time after many attempts of seeing them. Symphony X. I was supposed to see them back in 01, but around 2021, but the show was canceled due to COVID. Someone on this podcast saw them here in Pittsburgh without telling us about it.
Whoop whoop! That was me. Sorry, boys. Yeah, it was literally a last minute thing. And again, I saw them at the Altar Bar. That was the first show I ever saw there, and they were the best show I ever saw there.
But they were absolutely fantastic to finally see live. We were front row and less than a foot away from them. It felt like Russell Allen was literally like leaning over into the crowd, and I was just waiting for his sweat to fall on us. And then the show ended, and he shook our hands, and I'm just like, this is amazing. Just shook hands with a legend.
Russell Allen, you are a legend. I know you're not listening to this, but damn it, I'm going to say it anyway. Living legend, the man.
The one downfall was they did not play the Odyssey as for the encore.
Oh, I did get that. Sorry.
That was a bummer. Everyone was chanting Odyssey for them to come back out, and they kept cheering Odyssey, hoping they would play it, and it just never happened.
They were like, that song's too long. We're tired. We're going home.
Pretty much. That was their 6th show in a row that they played that night. So
oh, geez.
They were finally getting a day off the next day.
Yeah, they need it. Rest up, boys.
Sean, you have any concerts in the works?
No. No, yeah, the problem for me is that sometimes, while I like music, I'm like really picky about the music that I like in a lot of cases, and it doesn't help that a lot of my favorite bands are ones that have like dead members in them, because I like a lot of classic rock. So like, some of my favorite bands like Rush isn't touring. Uh, Jeff Lynne's ELO is going around, but when they come back to Pittsburgh, I already saw them once here, and when they're back this year, I'm on vacation. So and then I like one show that I missed, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I was like, oh, I'm not going to go this year, but they'll be back around again, I'm sure. And then Tom Petty died shortly after. So like so some of these bands like I really want, like some like my favorite classic rock bands, like aren't really touring much anymore. Um, and not that I don't like new stuff. I like plenty of new stuff, but the problem just comes down to it sometimes is that uh, concerts are expensive. They got it got even worse after COVID.
Yeah, some pricing has definitely gone up for tickets for, and it depends from band to band. Like a lot of the stuff that we mentioned here, like they're not super well known or they're not in the mainstream at all. I mean, Blind Guardians from Germany, Camelot's from Florida, but Roy Khan was from like the Netherlands or something, and I forget where Tommy's from. He's from like Sweden or something like that. So like they're from overseas. Symphony X, I think, is from Jersey or something. Like
They are.
they're local, but as big as they are, is like with the fans that we know, like they're an incredible band. You don't hear them on the radio ever. So I mean, these prices usually aren't too terrible. But then you get stuff like Metallica, which everybody knows they charge an arm and a leg for their tickets, and that only goes up. So it depends on the band, but even so, like prices have gone up just because of, you know, I don't know, the cost of living, COVID, because these guys didn't get to tour for a couple years. They're trying to make up for things. I don't know, but
Yeah, the venue costs have gotten. It's one of the things that my wife does a good amount of event planning, and with that there are like she has her finger on the pulse of how much venues cost,
sure,
and she said after COVID, it is absolutely insane how much venues cost.
I can
Uh,
believe it because they had
like
what like 2 years of no activity, and now they're like, well, people are going back out now. We gotta like really get them. So they rose the price.
yeah, no, and that's exactly and everything costs more in general. So like, yeah, it's just kind of how it is. So yeah, right now I'm looking up some Pittsburgh concerts coming up, and there's some I mean, there's some pretty cool stuff coming up. Actually, I didn't know was coming to town, so I should actually really, I should really like take a look at this more often. I guess half the time I don't even notice that certain things are in town, but I also don't really want to go outside town. Like I don't want to drive to Cleveland for a concert because I just don't.
That's fair. I mean, this is sort of directed toward Mike. I know Creed's coming to town, which I would enjoy seeing, but come on, Mike.
Sorry, that's Gen Con weekend.
Nah, it's Creed weekend.
I think when's Gen Con this year?
August 1st through the 4th, I believe, are the days.
Oh, sorry. I meant to ask when is Creed weekend this
Yeah,
year.
exactly.
Yeah,
uh,
August 1st through the 4th.
first weekend there, and
Yeah.
August. Yeah, good to know. Yeah, actually, okay. So it turns out there actually are like a pretty good number of like solid acts coming through, which is kind of interesting to me. I don't know. I'll have to see if I'm interested in. The problem is, I'm gonna click on a band and I'll be like, yeah, I like one or two of their songs, and then I'll see a ticket is like $50. I'm like, man, if I really pay $50 to see a band where I like two of their songs, and that's my problem. I guess in order for me to pay money for a ticket, I have to like really like them.
I get that. That makes sense.
So yeah. Oh, though I'm considering going to see Puppeteers for Fears, Cthulhu the musical. It's gonna be over in the South Hills of Pittsburgh. So because that the venue they have down there is always brings in these goofy acts like the McSabbath or whatever.
Oh yeah, I've seen some footage online of them.
Yeah. So like they bring really goofy groups to that one. So I'm considering going to see Puppeteers for Fears.
I would see Max Sabbath if they come to town and anybody else is interested. I would see that.
Yeah, it's at Max Sabbath. Yeah, and yeah, for sure, I would consider seeing them. There's also a band I've kind of wanted to see. I can't remember their name, but they go around dressed as Transformers.
I'm not
Like,
familiar.
yeah, and they play like one or two songs like from the old Transformers movie, but they also have like a number of original songs that are um like 80s sounding, and kind of loosely based on Transformers and other 80s nerdy things.
All
So,
right.
if they come around, I may go see them, because I'm actually a big Transformers nerd myself. But anyway, we have a potentially long show for you here. Today we're talking about episodes 11 and 12 of Solo Leveling, and these are the last two episodes that are out right now. I didn't actually look up to see if we got any news of another season, but this show has quite a bit of popularity, so I imagine we're gonna see it.
Actually, so it looks like we are getting it. It is officially announced. This article says it's coming. When?
I'm googling as fast as I can.
Q4 2024.
Whoa.
That fast?
It'll be an additional 13 episodes. So
Wow.
they're considering this, it's season 2, but it's considered the second half of season 1. Crunchyroll
Okay.
is designating it as a season 2, but it's really covering the back half of season 1.
I was gonna say we'll get to it, but it does sort of cut off abruptly. I wondered about that.
Yeah, I also kind of thought it was kind of a weird place to leave off. So maybe they always planned this with the studio, and they're like, yeah, we'll make the first half, take like a little hiatus, and then do like the second half of season one, kind of, later.
That's fair. I like it.
All right, well, we'll probably be back to reviewing that, whenever it comes out, I think. So stay tuned for that potentially. Episode 11, A Knight Who Defends an Empty Throne. Gino's in the mountains evaluating how to prepare for the quest. He says that this quest will make him stronger. He smiles and accepts it. A strange looking portal appears. Gino mentions that he forgot to do his daily quest. Oops. When I watched this, I said, I guarantee you that's a Chekhov's gun moment where they lay something mundane down earlier in the episode and it becomes something important later. I was like, nah, I'm like, that's important. Like, I don't know why I thought that was going to be important. Um, but he enters the portal. He's inside of a castle. It only sees a knight in armor. Roll the opening theme.
Sean, I had the same exact thoughts when it came to him not doing his daily quest. I'm like, oh, this is gonna come back and bite him in the ass somehow, isn't it?
I was probably the only one who didn't think that. I totally moved on. He's like, oh, I guess I'll do that later. Okay.
Well, it's almost
It
like a
Didn't.
just
comedy bit.
Yeah, like I didn't put two and two together there.
it just felt too out of left field to not include it, for it to not mean something in the future.
Well, because Gino's a really serious guy, but every once in a while he throws down like a deadpan joke.
Yeah,
So like, it wouldn't surprise you if there's a little comedic timing there.
And then when I saw that knight just sitting there, this knight is going to fuck up Genu, isn't he?
I really like this character design.
After the opening song, we go to Jinho's household. Jinho and his father are sitting at the dinner table. Jinho's brother, Jinsung, is there. He and Jinho look at each other like they don't enjoy each other's company. We jump back to Jinu. He's going over the rules of this place. Potions, access to the store, and full recovery are all forbidden. No recovering stats when leveling up either. Also, no leaving until he finishes the quest. This is hard mode. A knight begins walking down the hallway to Jinu. The battle begins. This armor type enemy is hard to scratch due to how durable they are. Jinu realizes that slashing and stabbing won't break the armor, so he decides to rip the armor in two with his bare hands. A whole slew of knights begin walking down the hallway.
I'm really glad we got the colored nameplates back above enemies. Like, we were really missing. Like, we lost it there for a couple episodes. It's like, why do we not have them back? Like, they introduced it, they introduced the system, and then it went away for a couple episodes. So I'm glad that returned.
Yes, I also really enjoyed that touch. I'm wondering if like they had different teams working on different episodes, and like that team didn't get the memo about the overhead naming. I feel like that was like forgotten somehow.
We cut back to the Yu family dinner. Jinho's father asks Jinho, "What's wrong?" And Jinho declines to answer. Jin Sung explains that he's negotiating terms in Europe and Middle East instead. Well, I'm sorry, negotiating terms with S rank hunters in Europe and the Middle East instead. Jin Sung yells Jinho to stay in his lane and not get in his way. But Jinho reflects and he says he has complete faith in the boss.
For some reason, my mind, I don't know why it was. Like, I don't know if I just thought in one of the episodes they said only hunters were in Korea or what it was, but I'm just like, oh, there, there's no hunters anywhere else in the world, just here in Korea. So like, I didn't wasn't even thinking of like Europe, the Middle East, the States, like just never even crossed my mind. And then Jinho's dad's gonna try and put him out of commission, isn't he?
There's definitely a lot of family tension between these three, and I feel like Jin Ho's just like sitting in the corner, and they sort of ignore him. They're like, "Oh, you can do whatever you want, just don't get in our way." And I'm very curious in the future to see how this is going to play out with Jinu and Jinho's partnership as this progresses.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys mentioned this. Actually, I'm starting to wonder if they're going to cut Jinho out because Jinho's doing this for the family, right? But they obviously don't know anything about um, Genu. In fact, you actually wonder if they really know anything about hunters at all, and just like, yeah, let's go find an S rank and make a guild. Like, can't be that hard. But like, Jinho really understands like hunters really well because he is one, right? So, and he's done his research. Like, you can tell the way he talks about it, and I think that eventually, like, sure, maybe the Yu family gets their guild up and running, but Jinho's probably going to start his own with Genu anyway, and maybe it'll be outside of the family, and they can become incredibly successful because of Genu. So, yeah, I'm glad you guys mentioned that because I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, I guarantee you that they're going to cut him out at some point, and he's going to go on and be more successful than they ever could have been.
I can totally see that happening. I'm very anxious to see how that unfolds.
As a business person, like my major was finance in college, so like I always love like the business side of like shows whenever they do stuff like this. It intrigues me greatly. So I always love seeing stuff like that, like business competition and uh, implemented business models and what people are doing with their capital to invest in the future. So that's my business nerd side coming out, though. My finance bro side. In the next scene, Genu is taking on the knights barehanded. He gets ambushed by a stealth using assassin. And then a mage attempts to blast Geno away, and Geno dodges. Geno admits that mages are his biggest weakness. He starts fighting an archer hunter. I'm sorry, an archer knight as well, dodging attacks. He's running out of fatigue, and he needs to end this fight.
I really dug how Jinu like pointed out to himself that he was reliving his previous battles. And I also love how his build is the dumb barbarian.
I also want to throw a shout out to Alex Lee again for his voice acting. I mean, not only in this particular scene, he's doing all the battle grunts and noises. He has to go back and redub the inner monologue that Genu is thinking to himself that we hear over top of the battle grunts and noises. So again, shout out Alex Lee. He's really good. I'd like to see him in more things.
Off to another 10-second cutaway that the director of this loves. Uh, it's the S rank hunters, all gathering one place getting into a helicopter. I don't know why, but I feel like this is one of those situations where like all the top hunters in the country are in one place and they're in a helicopter and for some reason the helicopter explodes or a big monster attacks it and like kills all of them and then there are no more S ranks leaving Genu to be the most powerful man in Korea. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but like, I just got those vibes out of this. I'm like, these S ranks are we barely know anything about them because they're all about to die.
I had a very similar thought actually. I'm like they're talking about going to do this mission and they're going to scout and they're all going to get killed except for maybe like one, and Genu is going to be like the most powerful hunter of all time, which I mean the show kind of gives it away. They're kind of setting him up for that anyway. But I'm like, oh, all the best hunters are going to go down, and it's just going to be him, and he's just going to solo this island. I'm waiting for that to happen.
We're back to Genu, who has taken down all of the variations of knights. They've been dropping canteens, and that allows Genu to get his stamina back. He also gets a knight chest plate, a piece of armor. He equips some of this armor, and he gets invisible armor all over his body. He also scored some items that I guess he could sell at the shop later, and all his fatigue is reset. So it's time for the next battle. He walks to a scary looking door and opens it up. Wind howls out of it. Very spooky.
The animators totally made the armor invisible just to keep his look consistent and also save them the hassle of having to reanimate him, didn't they?
I don't know, maybe.
It's like, oh, the armor, you can't see it, but it's on.
That's probably a realistic reason. But I mean, how many times in video games, especially old school ones, where you equip and change your armor and your character model doesn't change at all? So there's some video game logic to that too.
So the animators don't have to draw multiple models of armor.
Yeah. You don't have to keep making the character over and over, change outfit. Just, hey, you equip it, you get the benefits, your dude does not change.
Lazy animators. The room is a throne room. There's a singular knight in the room. Genie says this is the same pressure he felt in the double dungeon. All of the pressure he feels is because of the enemy before him. Knight Commander, Egress the Blood Red. Awesome name in threat level red.
I love this dude's name. Like, it's an amazing name. Also, I have a bad feeling about this. Knight Commander, Egress the Blood Red. Whenever Genu was saying, oh, I felt this back in the double dungeon, my first thought was, is this Egress going to be stronger than the statues? Same power level as the statues? Like, what's the power scale here?
I'm going to bet that the statue is much more powerful just because of even the way it's animated, where like Knight Commander Egress the Blood Red is very, very cool. But he's about Genu height, whereas like the statue is towering and much, much larger. So I'm just assuming due to the way that these characters are drawn, I'm going to say that the statue is much, much more powerful. But Egress is no slouch.
The battle begins. Egress is fast and strong. Genu's on the defensive here the entire first part of the battle. When he does try to fight back, he can't pierce the armor of Egress. He says that they're equals in speed, but Egress is way stronger.
I love the visuals of this fight. Like, they were fantastic.
Yeah, the animation here is just very, very good. It's excellent.
Genu drops his weapon. Egress does the same. It's time for a good old-fashioned slobber knocker. But we get another 30-second cutaway. Like I said, they love this. They love this in this show. The chairman's in his office. Wu is speaking with him. They get a call from the S rankers. They confirm that the mission is them going to Jeju Island. And the TV interviews that they've been doing were solely for gaining public support to go back and finish what they started. The chairman confirms that he gives them his full support. Back to the battle that we probably never should have left in the first place. Even with blocking and armor, Genu is taking a ton of damage. He decides to use dash and strike at Egress. He still gets his butt kicked. Things look grim, but eventually, Genu lands a blow. Only to get his teeth kicked in some more. Stop, Egress. He's already dead. Egress launches Genu across the room, where Genu lands on the throne that was in the throne room, which was a very fun visual. Genu tries to catch his breath, and another dang cutaway.
Egress threw Genu so hard that we had to cut away from the battle.
These cutaways, man.
The visual of the knight repeatedly punching Genu was so amazing. He just like, especially because Genu's like, oh, we're equivalent in speed, and then the knight's like, whack 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 toss.
Oh, you only
But
think we're equals in speed. I've been going easy.
and when Genu landed a hit, I was like, holy shit! I was shocked at that.
Short-lived though.
I was gonna say it only pissed Egress off because it caused him to bleed. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Nobody.
The one thing I was waiting for whenever we saw Genu on the throne was I was almost waiting for Egress to bend the knee, like, "Oh, you're on the throne. I serve you now."
Oh, anybody who sits on the throne.
Yeah.
All right, that would be a twist.
Well, you know how like in the double dungeon, right? Like we're introduced to a world where maybe there are riddles and you have to use your brain to kind of figure some things out. Like, oh, is this one of those things where like anyone sitting on the throne is the king and the knight serves the king, right? It would have been very interesting if they did something like that. But well, when we get back after the cutaway, we're gonna see that that is not the case. But we have to address the cutaway first. We see a clock. It shows the time is just around 11 p.m. Gina is shown sitting down to study and eat. They also flash over to see their mom in the hospital, still in a coma.
I feel like the only reason they did this cutaway was so we could remember Genu's motivation for fighting and doing all this. But it's like, okay, we've been watching the episodes. We know what his motive. It's not like it hasn't been brought up multiple times prior. Like I would understand it if this was episode 2 or 3, where we're still learning all these characters. But this is the end of the season. We know these characters. We know their motivations.
Yeah, and we know the only character that matters is Genu, so we don't need to see anybody else. Let's focus on him now, please.
Egress summons his sword out of the ground where he put it, similarly to Thor summoning Mjolnir. Egress raises the sword, and he brings down the slash. But Genu blocks it with his bare hands.
That was a fantastic visual.
Oh yeah, this was a great moment.
Yeah, I do have to hand it to the animators in these episodes. We have a few really nice visuals. Genu summons his dagger and stabs Egress in the eye. He stabs Egress by the waist and runs him into the wall. Genu returns the dagger to his inventory and then summons it again. He stabs between the armor and keeps on striking repeatedly. The battle is confirmed won by Genu with a notification telling him that he has defeated Knight Commander Egress the Blood Red.
The visual of the death strike was so damn dope. Like I love how we got it from so many different angles, and I love the different angles for the attack.
Yeah, this whole thing I think was like framed beautifully, quote unquote, shot beautifully. I really loved everything animation wise about this. I just felt a little bummed, I guess, on how Genu was just like so outclassed by this guy, and he wins just by like stabbing him in the eye and then in the neck a bunch of times. Like I get it, that would kill a person, but like wow, after he was so outclassed, he just a couple lucky shots, and that's all it took to win.
It seems like that's how Genu wins a lot of his battles. Like
Also
he
true.
gets his ass beat for like 95% of the fight, and then it's like, oh wait, main character power up, go.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Genu gets a chance to relax and reflect. He calls his victory a fluke and said that he was one bad move from death.
At least acknowledge it.
Yeah. He received 4 rewards for victory. A pouch with 1.5 million gold for the shop. An S rank acquisition difficulty Crimson Knight's helmet. Does physical damage minus 20%, but vitality plus 20 and strength plus 20. It's invisible again, like the other armor, and confirmed to be the first S rank item he's received other than the Demon's Castle key. You got a runestone for the ability Ruler's Hand. Genu asks, what skill is that? And he'll find out later. I say, why do you keep delaying, dude? Just crack him now.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I'd crack it right away.
Yeah, you have the ability, learn it. Lastly, a teleportation stone. But like you would think a teleportation stone like would drop before the final boss and not after it. Hmm. Uh-oh. Maybe it's not over yet.
Genu is now level 40, and when they showed his equipment, I'm like, how is it still so basic at level 40? Like, he doesn't have any armor besides like the 2 pieces he's just gotten this episode.
This is my special equipment hoodie. It gives me defense plus 0.
It's like 1%, 1%, one. It's like, how, what? Like, how did you not buy armor? How did you not earn anything from previous encounters? Like, what?
Yeah, we haven't really done a whole lot with the shop in this show. Like, they brought it up and he couldn't access it, and then he accessed it once to buy a couple potions, and that's been about it.
And the potions were terrible too. They healed like 100 HP apiece when he had like 5,000.
Yeah.
For a stupid amount of price, too.
So I can only imagine like what weapons or armor would cost in this shop. Maybe he just doesn't have the money, but like they didn't even show it to us.
I also have a bad feeling about that ruler's hand. Like, something about the name just feels ominous.
Yeah, I really wish he would have told us what it did.
I'm just gonna put this skill away for now.
Yeah, this won't help me any.
I'm not even gonna look at it. I don't even know what it does. I don't want to know what it does.
So we receive a string of notifications. The job change quest begins now. Survive as long as possible to earn advancement points that are required to be assigned a higher class. Good luck. There's a timer that appears. It's counting upwards. And a bunch of portals open. Knights come pouring out of them. Time for Genu to fight them all. But first, we cut away. This is actually kind of an appropriate cutaway, though. Like, like they should do it like between the battles. I'm fine with a cutaway during that, but in the middle of the battle, that ticks me off. We cut away to the S rankers, all in the I'm sure soon to explode helicopter for about 4 seconds, and then go back to Genu. Makes no dang sense why they have to do like I think it was seriously maybe 5 seconds maximum.
Is this supposed to be like the comedy bit of the show? It's just the cutaways?
I have no idea. Genu uses stealth, but the knights have well, not the knights, the mage knights have an ability that can break stealth, so he can't use that. And they can also dispel murderous intent, so he can't use that either. Genu's now survived 5 minutes. He's about to use that teleportation stone, but like in the Cerberus fight, oh no, it got knocked out of my hand. Now I can't teleport.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Genu needs to stop eating popcorn before he fights.
He's got those butter fingers. He's about to get mobbed, and the episode ends.
He's fucked.
He's dead, Jim.
Sounds like Genu could use a beer. Take it away, Mike.
You know what they say? Alcohol is the best medicine. And that means it's time for Mike's Beer of the Week. This week's beer comes to you from The Brew Kettle, and it is their Major Lager, a 4.5% light lager. I got this beer while attending a Guardians game, finally knocking Progressive Field off of my stadium list. There's not much to say about this beer. It's basic AF. But the can art was cool because it was the Wild Thing logo from Major League 1 and 2, which are awesome movies. But yeah, beer is basic. It's a basic light lager. Nothing to write home about. But it was fine for a baseball game. The untapped average rating is a 3.53, and I give it a 3.
Episode 12. Arise. The episode begins with Genu getting tossed around by the army of armor. He can't find the teleportation stone. It's time to beat them or die trying. Stamina is at its limit, and two of his best skills are locked down. He has, now, it was actually a little blurry, so I was trying to get these numbers. He has 632 out of 10,278 HP. He has 54 out of either 8 or 950 mana, and he has 87 out of 100 fatigue. He gathers up his strength, saying that he will survive, and goes to town barehanded on the knights. His knuckles have actually had their skin ripped off. All of a sudden, Jinu hears the voice of Mr. Kim in his head. And well, they call him the weakest hunter of all mankind. Jinu gets slashed by a knight. Then he hears Bom Sheik saying, "Wait, really? That's a thing?" As he gets smacked in the back of the leg with a hammer. Then he sees Chio Sung and Juhi telling him that it's okay, he can give up. Then looking like his old self, he sees a version of his old self saying, "You deserve this. Now why did you go and do something so dangerous? I know, you were at the bottom, but you've come so far. That should have been enough, don't you think, Gino?" The other him gives a creepy stare, and we go to the opening theme.
I was calling other him Ghost Genu, and I agree, Sean. That stare was so damn creepy.
I think in like the other ghost versions of these characters, I don't think we actually like see their eyes. I think they're like it's darkened out. We just see like the lower half of their face, so they're like their mouth. So they're like we don't get to see any of the eyes until we see Ghost Genu's eyes, and they are creepy.
I also really loved Genu's inner monologue to start this episode.
After the opening, we see the chairman explaining that he couldn't take part in the third raid of Jeju Island. And Wu did participate, but he didn't really do a lot of battle. They discussed the mental and physical scars from the raid. And I think this is one of those things where they talk about, the other characters talk about things that are kind of relevant to what Jinu's going through. And we talk about like mental and physical scars, and we saw his mental scars coming out right here as he's forming more physical scars. So they've used that with the cutaways to help you tell a story. Like I said, I don't particularly care for it that much, but right after the opening is an appropriate time to do a cutaway to these other characters, so I didn't mind it. We're gonna call him Ghost Genu, by the way. It's a good term, Mike. Ghost Genu taunts Genu and explains that all that Genu can ever become is a pathetic E-rank weakling. Genu recalls being almost killed by the statue. This is pretty much a reflection of that. Like these knights are about to bring down the final killing blow. But a notification pops up. Genu's about to die, but he didn't complete his daily quest and gets transported to the penalty zone. He would be dead now without it, but because he's in the penalty zone and it's a different area, he can use potions and items. But he can't restore his health with potions because his HP's too low. We'll talk about that in a minute. The penalty zone centipedes appear. The only way Gino would recover his health is by leveling up. Time to level grind.
What are the odds that the penalty would save his ass?
I kind of facepalmed when it happened because, like I said before, I didn't put two and two together at the beginning of the last one. So when this came up, I was like, "Oh, they kind of told me this was going to happen, and I didn't figure it out."
And the potions not being able to heal him was so dumb. Like, I've never heard of a show, a game, whatever it might be. Oh, sorry, your HP is too low, so potions won't work. It's the whole point of having a potion.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
they could have easily just said, oh, you're in the penalty zone, so because of that, you can't use potions. Done.
Also, my thought were I had thought about now that he's in this other area, can't he just use full recover?
I think he's done it before.
Full recover's healed his wounds before, so why didn't he just use full recover? Why was he like trying to sip those 100 HP potions?
Maybe he didn't have any full recovers.
I find that unlikely.
I do too.
It could be the
Same, but
case though.
it seems like he only gets them from his dailies.
But he's definitely stockpiled a few of them.
I mean, you would think.
He used it in the one fight against the B rank guy. I can't remember his name because I'm terrible with names, but he used one in that battle in the regular dungeon, so he's got some stashed away. I certainly would.
Yeah, so this was very questionable, the whole thing.
It just seems really weird. I don't know why they went this route. They could have just let him heal, and he's like, "All right, well, I'm going to spend 4 hours here. I guess I'll just level grind." The non healing just doesn't make sense. It's not needed. It's not building tension or suspense or anything.
But how long does he end up in the penalty zone for? How was it last time? 2, 3, 4 hours, something
I
like
believe it was
that?
4 hours.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
So you assume he's probably stuck here for 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
And can't go back. So I guess we cut over to Gina, and I guess it's sometime between midnight and 4 a.m. She has a weird dream, and she knows that Jinu's on a raid. She said, "If I didn't know any better, I'd swear he got a girlfriend. No time for women, Gina. He's got a game." Uh, she also wonders if he'll make it to her guardian teacher conference.
When she said that, I'm like, Ginu's totally gonna let her down, isn't he?
Oh, I didn't think about that. This is another one of those scenes where I just was like, a cutaway. I sort of block those out now.
Yeah, most of them add very little. But we go back to Jinu. He's leveled up a few times, killing all those centipedes. He has 10 minutes until he returns to the job change quest. He buys an item called a Night Killer, 25% bonus damage to armor types. He also cracks the Ruler's Hand runestone. It's about time. The user can manipulate objects without touching them. It's just like the Igris summoning his sword to him, which, as we recall, was like Thor calling back his hammer. Right now, it's limited to smaller items, which means because he tries to lift a centipede, and I'm like, wait, does this dude just have telekinesis now? Like, if you're a Harry Potter fan, like Accio centipede, and the centipede just like goes towards you, and if he levels it up, he can just pull big items towards him. It's kind of busted.
Little bit. That could be very handy.
Oh well, back to the job quest we go.
The Night Killer dagger is so cool looking, and that Roller's Hand skill sounds almost too good to be true to me.
For sure. And here's an actual appropriate cutaway. Off to the helicopter. The S rankers are on the helicopter. They detect multiple things in the water and bring up a feed. Oh, that was it. About 4 seconds. Okay.
These cutaways are just ridiculous. Cutaway to a scene, not 2 seconds.
Yeah, they sure are like spreading out a story that they can tell in about 60 seconds between all these cutaways.
Yeah, I would rather them just do that. Like, cut away, give me the whole scene of all these little bits at once, and then cut back to what's actually happening.
I know you listeners are like, stop harping on the cutaways. They're not that bad. And I'm just like, no, it just feels so random and out of place. And like,
They are
the
that bad.
yeah, and the characters aren't even like interesting or intriguing for the most part. Like, Gina is cool, I guess. But like, most of these S rankers, I feel like I know nothing about them. Like, why do I care about them?
Well, the cutaways are only like 10 seconds long, so there's not enough time for us to get to know these characters.
Yeah. Well, back to Ginu. That new knife he bought is putting in some work, but something feels off. No matter how many enemies he kills, they summon more. He finds out that there are mages summoning these knights through the portals. So he jumps high in the area, launches his dagger straight through a mage. And he actually takes out, a few of them here using that ruler's hand ability. He would throw his knife and he'd summon it back to him and then do some more slashing, run around, slash a guy. So yeah, he takes out 3 of them, and the other 3 get together and they summon a giant golem. And Ginu drops a huge chandelier on it, and then he makes a beeline to the mages. He kills all 3 of them, but that doesn't stop the golem. The golem swings at Ginu, who blocks it with his knife, which is kind of crazy. Ginu powers back with the knife, cracks the golem's armor all the way from his fist, all the way up through his arm, and eventually shatters him, just with his strength. The timer freezes with 4 minutes and 29 seconds on the timer. A notification appears. I have defeated all the monsters. Finish the job change quest. Uh, any thoughts on that fight?
It was good. It was a letdown though off of Egress. I honestly wish they were flipped, and Egress would have been the job change quest boss instead of just survive for as long as possible against an army of knights and mages.
That's a really good point, actually. I wonder why they did it this way, just to be different, or if there was like a more of a reason for it. It just seems weird to me as well.
I personally, I kind of agree. Egress feels like a better final boss than what this was. This was fine, but Egress felt like a boss battle. It felt like it really should have been the end. But I guess the swerve of like him beating Egress and then like something else happening was pretty good from a viewer's perspective, so I can accept it. What's hard for me to accept is that his timer's on 4 minutes and 29 seconds when it should be 4 hours, 4 minutes and 29 seconds.
Well, he had 5 minutes before that, even, and that just disappeared. So it should be 4 hours and 9 minutes and 29 seconds.
Oh crap, you're right. Shouldn't it have been?
Yeah. Oops.
Very bizarre. But I don't know. They have to push the story forward somehow, so this is how they're doing it. It's time for a notification swarm. Analysis completed. Wherever the player goes, the angel of death follows. Whatever path the player takes, it is littered with corpses and the stench of blood remains. In addition, the player craves great power and blazed his own trail without relying on others. Its thirst for strength calls forth the ghosts that roam the valley of death. The ghosts summoned by the Shadow Army will follow the player's orders as the Shadow Army and make way only for the player. Your job is Necromancer. What do you think about these notifications?
They're so ominous. Like when it said the angel of death follows Genu now, I'm like, oh, is he gonna indirectly kill his mom somehow? Like when it's like, oh,
Ooh.
the path is littered with corpses and the stench of blood. It's like, oh, he's gonna kill his mom, isn't he?
I wasn't thinking that at all. That's kind of scary, actually. This genuinely surprised me, and maybe you guys can, agree or disagree with this. When you watch so many, forms of media, you can kind of predict some things that are going to happen. So when a curveball is thrown at you that you don't see, I enjoy that. It's like, wow, I never thought his job class change would be necromancer.
I'm kind of surprised by that too. Also, Mike, I want to touch on what you said about the angel of death following. A lot of times in stories like this, characters who have like great ambition, I often have to lose a large amount of like what like I have to lose a large amount of self. They have to make sacrifices, and often those sacrifices are people in their life, whether it's like cutting them out or losing friendships and relationships. And in some cases, their actions leading to a character's death sometimes. And I could totally see his actions leading to other characters' deaths in his uh, pursuit of power.
And then necromancer job also sounds very bizarre for him. I mean, he even pointed out to everyone, it's like, this isn't how I built my character. I didn't put anything in intellect.
Yeah, he really is surprised by that. They said that that magic stat or intelligence stat, it's his weakest stat. So there has to be a mistake, and he actually declines the job. They say, "Do you want to be a necromancer?" And he's like, "Nah." And the job says, "Well, it's a hidden class. You should probably accept it." This is kind of shady, right?
I thought so.
Yeah.
Genu contemplates that it's summoning magic and that his opponents were using similar summoning magic. He thinks that maybe it was inevitable and the job change option is less of an option than he thinks. So he guesses he's just going to have to be a magic class but fight on the front lines anyway. Summoning allies means he won't be solo leveling anymore. And something I wanted to say about this, I guess, now I think about it, is that this is one of those things where we've kind of questioned, like, is the system sentient, or like, is there someone pulling the strings in the background? with the system? Like, is there a specific aim to him becoming a necromancer? Does he just have the illusion of choice, and he doesn't actually have a choice but to pick that job? Genu is always kind of suspicious of the system a little bit. There are times where he's like, "Man, this thing really doesn't want me to die." Like, he knows it acts weird.
I agree with you. I also have that thought that there's somebody watching him and there's somebody, forcing him down this path. And, like you said, the illusion of choice, where I think everything is kind of set up for him and he just is following this path that he doesn't know. So I definitely think that there's somebody pulling the strings here.
We cut to the chairman. The sun is rising. Wu hands the chairman some coffee. They stayed up all the way until dawn because they wanted to make sure that the helicopter would land safely. Time for
Didn't
the job
explode yet?
change. What? Sorry?
It didn't explode yet?
It hasn't exploded yet. Time for the job change. We see a number of notifications. You have exceeded the expected survival time. Bonus points will be awarded. You have not used the instant teleportation stone. Bonus points will be awarded. Leftover HP is over 50%. Bonus points will be awarded. You have defeated all the enemies. Bonus points will be awarded. Your advancement points have exceeded the class threshold. Darkness surrounds Genu's body and explodes outwards. Genu is radiating shadows. He's already class changed from Necromancer to Shadow Monarch due to the number of bonus points that he received. Unique class skills and 10 ability points are available, plus a new title. His rewards are ready, but is the quest finally over? Did he complete the job change? He hears cries from the bits of armor. He can use a new ability called Shadow Extraction. He has to pick a keyword to use the ability. The word is Arise, which also happens to be the title of this episode. Genu summons the spirits of the dead. Well, not exactly, but Shadow Extraction extracts mana from a corpse and transforms it into a Shadow Soldier. Shadow Storage is his other ability. It lets him store 20 of these shadows. Strength of Shadow is dictated by the strength of the soldier and how long they've been dead. He then realizes he can also summon A or S rank shadows. So he walks over to Egris. Genu gets 3 extraction attempts on any creature. He tries twice and he fails. And then he gives a cheesy speech to Egris about serving a king and blah blah blah. And then he attempts the last extraction. It's successful. Egris is his to command. He even names him instead of giving him the whole name. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna rename you Egris. The shadows all bow to Genu, and we roll those credits.
The job change visuals were amazing. And like, what the hell is a Shadow Monarch? Like, huh? Like, I get it, Shadow King, but like, what the hell does that mean in terms of like a class?
He is the leader of all the shadow soldiers he summons. He's the monarch.
Yeah.
It kind of made me think of like a Fire Emblem class change. You start as a necromancer, and then you class change into the shadow monarch above that. After you hit level 20, of course.
I also thought it was very fitting that a throne was behind Genu when he became the Shadow Monarch.
They knew what they were doing, putting that chair there.
And now it also left me wondering. It's like, okay, with how ominous the notifications were, Genu's gonna kill his mom, but then he's just gonna revive her using his powers.
I don't think they're gonna do that because then she would just be a shadow, and she wouldn't even be like a strong one because she's not a hunter or anything.
Yo, what if his sister dies and he does that too, and he just like raises like his family from the dead to be shadows because he can't move on. They haunt him as ghosts.
I think that's a little too edgy, a little too edgelord for this show. But maybe it's not.
But here's what Sean wants to know: how many of those Jeju Island S ranks are going to join Genu's Shadow Army before the story?
Whoa! There it is. There's that edge.
Oh, you know he's going to do it, though. You know what I mean? If one of those guys dies, he's going to be like, arise. I can't remember any of their names.
Arise,
Fire-
Christopher Sabat.
He's gonna name him Sabat.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, does he get to rename all the shadows too?
That's a good question because the only one he got to rename was Igris. The other ones, I guess, they're just foot soldiers. They don't mean anything. So maybe you have to be strong enough to get a name.
Just name them A, B, C, D, E, F. You know. Oh, post credits. We get a scene with the S rank hunters, the soon-to-be Shadow S rank hunters. We find an interesting bit of information. The monsters from the break all those years ago are somehow evolving.
Gasp.
End series.
I know that this post-credit scene was supposed to build suspense, but to me it just felt lacking. Like, we haven't seen a ton of Jeju Island. Like, we get the cutaways, but like it's like this is our B story, but we barely pay any they barely paid any attention to it for the most part throughout the season. So it's like, okay, I get it. It's your B story. It's going to be something big, but why should I care when you barely spent any time devoted to it right now in the first half of the season?
I genuinely feel like the cutaways that they have done have been like a hindrance to the show instead of a help. If they would have put some of those scenes together and like cut away to a larger chunk of these characters so we get to know them and we get to interact with them a little bit more, I think this post-credit scene would be a little bit more meaningful. But because we get these 10-second snippets of these characters, I typically don't pay attention to these cutaways when we get them because I know we're going to just cut right back. So, like, I don't know who these people are. I know they're S rank hunters, but I don't know their names. I don't know what their shtick is. We barely spend time with them. So I feel like if this was re-edited to where these cutaways have a little bit more meaning, a little bit longer of a scene where we get to know these people, this would have more of an impact.
It was also interesting that the show started with Jeju Island, and it's also ending with Jeju Island.
Yeah, I think that the next season is going to probably focus on Jeju Island quite a bit. And if it doesn't, then it's probably going to end. Like maybe we get cutaways to the S rank hunters' adventures on Jeju Island. I would love like a full episode where we just follow the S rank hunters around Jeju Island.
Oh
Right? I
yeah,
mean that'd be great. Like let me get to know these guys. Let me get to know their abilities. Let me get to know their backstories. Let me get to know their relationships with each other.
give us a reason to care, please.
Yeah. But right now, if Genu's not on if Genu's not on the screen, get your phone out and just start browsing social media or something, or watching TikTok because it
Don't matter.
it doesn't matter. All right, guys. So not just these episodes, but the entire series. Let's have like I said, our listeners have heard us complain enough about the cutaways, so I guess we could skip that. But what do you guys think about this show as a whole?
I thought the show was good. Knowing what we know now about season 2, quote unquote season 2, what Crunchyroll's calling it, is going to play out as the second half of season 1. I'm a little more open to these cutaways and everything, and like building to everything. I just wish they didn't have this large break between the two parts of the season, or they paced the episodes better. Like, part 1 is like season 1 could have just been all about Genu. Like, just about him, getting him in the system, getting more powerful, etc. Maybe have something here and there about Jeju Island, but the first half, just Genu, just all Genu all the time. And then the season 2 could have been about Genu, but then we could have got more involved with Jeju Island and everything else. So like that's my one gripe of like, it's like I'm like, very excited for this season 2. Like I want to see where they go. I love how it had so much RPG aspects to this show. So I'm very excited to see where they go from here. I just hope for this second half, it's better paced.
I agree. I like the show. I have some issues with the cutaways. We talked about it already. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here, but yeah, I mean it's good. I'm very intrigued for season 2, part 2, whatever you want to call it. I would like to know some of these characters a little bit better. Hopefully, we will get that in season 2. Spend more time with these other S rank hunters. They seem like they're important. It seems like the show is trying to set them up, so I hope to get some more interaction with them. How they interact with each other, what their abilities are, how they fight. Some interesting and cool fight sequences. We got some pretty good fight sequences in part 1 here, so I expect to see more of that with not just Genu. But yeah, I'm excited for more. I It sucks we gotta wait, but at the same time, I totally understand this takes a lot of time and man hours to make a show like this happen. So I'm very willing to wait until it's done and it's ready.
And for me, I think that I like this series. As I mentioned before, it's a shame we watched this one right after Free Ren because I don't think the two are comparable. Because I think Furren is superior in pretty much every single way. However, I didn't think this was a bad show. I'm actually really looking forward to the second half of season 1 because I kind of want to see where they go with it. Um, if you really want to just watch a show and enjoy like that power fantasy of just like having the main character kick the crap out of everyone, I it's a really good time. If you like video game mechanics, it's going to be fun for you. I think it's just that's what it is. It's good old fashioned anime violence. And if you just like some good old fashioned anime violence, this is your show. And if you like video games on top of that, oh boy, this is really your show. And if you like isekais, it's almost like an isekai. So you're gonna like this too. So I don't. It just has a lot of good things going for it. It's a recipe for success that a lot of people I could definitely see, especially like a lot of teenage guys, into this. So yeah, I would suggest hanging around for season 2, and depending on how things go, we may review it. But now it's time for the waifu of the week. Turtle, who is your waifu of the week?
This week, I'm going to go with Knight Commander Igris of the Blood Red. I really like it. I don't want to just pick Genu. I feel like you could just pick him for every episode of the show because he's the only character that actually matters. But I like the design of Igris. I think the armor looks cool. He's got the cape. He's got the little hair coming off the helmet that goes all the way, like drags on the ground behind him. I think it's a cool design. It's not super unique, but it's cool enough where I dig it. So just to not pick Genu every week, I'm going with Igris.
Mike, your waifu of the week.
Genu. I mean, he was pretty much the only character in these episodes. So, yeah, we're just gonna go Genu. Because low-hanging fruit.
So if you've been paying attention to the waifu of the week every episode, which I hope you have been, the previous 5 weeks, I have picked anyone but Genu. Will that trend continue this week? My waifu of the week it's just Genu. I mean, this guy's the main character. Honestly, if you picked pretty much anyone but Genu for all 6 weeks, you're just screwing around. It's just kind of funny how he's the main character. No other character matters. Like, he's the best guy. But I want to thank you all for joining us this week and for the past few weeks as we've watched Solo Leveling. I hope you join us whenever we continue reviewing Solo Leveling in the future. We also hope you join us next week for episode 61 of the Anime Banter podcast, where we're changing up our format a little bit. Mike is going to be bringing us a split show format, where instead of us taking maybe a 12 episode series and reviewing it over 6 weeks, we're going to take, say, a 12-episode series, and we're going to review it over 12 weeks alongside a second series. That's right. We will be bringing you reviews of one episode of My Hero Academia Season 7 and one episode of Kaiju number 8. That's right. 2 shows, 1 episode of each per week. So we hope you like the new format, and we're hoping that by choosing multiple shows, we can reach more viewers. So if you didn't like Solo Leveling and you tuned out of our podcast because of that, if you choose 2 shows, maybe you'll want to stick around. And maybe you're only interested in My Hero Academia but not Kaiju number 8. That's okay. Listen to the first half of the episode. If you like Kaiju number 8 and you hate My Hero Academia, then skip halfway of the episode, listen to Kaiju number 8. If you like both of them, or you're just a fan of hearing us rant and banter for a few hours, then listen to both. We're happy to have you along for the ride. So please join us next week for that. Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews. If you're listening on YouTube, please like the video, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. The Anime Banter podcast can be found on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you all for joining us, and we will talk to you next week.